Okay, class. So let's proceed to Module 7. Module 7 covers the concept of multiple offenders and what do you call classification of the gravity of the felony. Okay. For multiple offenders, no, we have 4 categories. Okay, recidivism, habituality or repetition, quasi-recidivism, and habitual delinquency. Again, habituality is not similar with habitual delinquency. Okay, these two are separate and distinct from each other. Okay, the first thing that we need to understand is that in these four categories of multiple offenders, they committed crimes already. They already committed crimes. So there are differing, the 4 classification differs as the crimes that were committed by a person. Okay, meaning, for example, in recidivism, okay, it is a requirement that the crimes committed by the person must belong to a same title. Okay, example, murder is crime against person. So what are other example of crimes under crimes against person? We have slight physical injury. We have homicide. Okay, so these are the kinds of the person to be considered as recidivist should commit crimes within the same title provided under the revised penal code. So for example, crimes against national security, so like treason, rebellion, so those belongs to the same group of or the same title under the revised penal code. You don't need to worry first because you will encounter all those crimes as you go with your criminal law too. Okay, so now in habituality, there is no requirement that the previous crime and the the previous and the second or the succeeding crimes committed by the person belongs to the same title. What is more important in habituality is that the penalty, okay, or the penalty for the first offense has already been served out, meaning the person is considered habitual or there is habituality when the person served the penalty for his first offense or first felony. So for example, the person committed estafa, okay, and was imprisoned because of that. Okay, so after serving his sentence, the person committed rape. Okay, so estafa is punished under title on frauds. Okay, there is a title in the revised penal code that punishes felonies committed committed by fraud, such as estafa. So after being imprisoned for estafa and that person went out from jail, that person committed rape, which is a crime against a person. So the rape and the estafa does not belong to the same title, but the person is considered habitual or there is habituality or repetition because the person has already served his sentence. In quasi-recidivism, the crimes, the first and the succeeding crimes, for example, estafa, we go back to estafa, no? Estafa and rape, there is no requirement in quasi-recidivism that estafa or the person convicted for estafa has served his sentence. So before serving the sentence or during serving the sentence for the crime of estafa, in our example, the person committed another crimes, maybe rape, physical injury, threat, or whatever kind of crimes punished under the revised penal code, then that the person is considered quasi-recidivist. okay, or quasi recidivist. Okay, sir, what do you mean by before serving the sentence? Okay, there is okay, if a person was convicted, no, there is, for example, person was convicted for the crime of estafa, and then there is a judgment convicting him, but before he was arrested and put to the jail facility, no, he committed a separate another crime, no, during before serving his sentence. So that is what we mean by before serving his sentence. Okay, as long as there is a final conviction, okay, it is important that there must be a final conviction in recidivism, habituality, and quasi-recidivism. Okay. In habitual delinquency, you need to remember that there are only four crimes, four crimes that can be okay. Okay. So for example, in habitual delinquency, you need to remember less serious or serious physical injury, robbery, theft, estafa, and falsification. If any of these five, crimes were committed by the same person, at least guilt within 10 years from his last release or conviction, and that person was held guilty the third time or oftener, so third time, not only second time but third time, then an additional penalty should be imposed. Again, you need to remember for habitual delinquency, the five crimes that can be committed. First is less serious or serious physical injury, theft, robbery, estafa, and falsifications. So another requirement is that within 10 years from his last release or conviction, he committed any of those crimes for the third time. So that is habitual delinquency. Okay. One final note on recidivism, the crime should be punished under the revised penal code. That is the only requirement, because in habituality or repetition, the crimes can be committed maybe under the special penal laws. So for example, drugs, the person committed the rape, and then after serving his sentence for rape, he was again convicted for the crimes of under the Dangerous Drug Act. Then habituality or repetition under Article 14, Paragraph 10 of the Revised Penal Code is applicable. Okay. Effects. If a person is considered recidivist, the effect is that the offense is not, if not offset by any mitigating circumstance, increase the penalty only to the maximum. So if the person is considered recidivist, then the maximum penalty should be imposed. So should be imposed in the absence of the mitigating circumstance, which we will discuss later on. In habituality, it can be considered as aggravating. Sorry for that interruption. Next is for quasi-recidivism. It is considered as the penalty should be imposed in its maximum and cannot be offset by a mitigating circumstance. And then as for the For habitual delinquency, the effect is that an additional penalty shall be imposed. Okay. We already mentioned the different circumstances affecting crimes, no? The aggravating, the mitigating. It's okay, we will discuss that when we reach module 10. Okay. So for now, you just need to remember those important things that I discuss when you hear those sorry for that interruption, when you hear those terms. Okay, now classification of felonies according to gravity, very simple. I just want to make it short. We have 3 classification of penalties according to its gravity. First is gravity, meaning how do you call that? In Bisaya, that is kabugaton. In Tagalog is I cannot remember. I cannot think of a Tagalog term of gravity. Seriousness. Okay, another English term of gravity is seriousness. Okay, the seriousness of the crime committed. Okay. Okay. We have 3: grave, less grave, and light felonies. We already discussed light felonies. What I want you to remember is that light felonies is punishable by arresto minor, or an imprisonment of 1 day to 30 days, or a penalty of 200 pesos or both. Light felonies, on the other hand, or less grave felonies, are punishable by correctional or periods. Maximum periods are correctional penalties. Okay, we have less light penalties. Light felonies is to arresto minor. Less grave penalties is punishable by correctional penalties. Then grave felonies are punishable by capital punishments. Okay, that's all the things that you need to remember. Okay, grave felonies punishable by capital punishment. Less grave felonies punishable by correctional penalties, and then light felonies punishable by arresto minor. Now, here comes the tricky part, the memory part, which I don't require you to memorize. At least familiarize yourselves with the term. For capital, we have capital punishment, death. Okay, death in Philippines is considered capital punishment, but under the law, under the executive order of the president, I can't remember who is it. Gloria Arroyo, Joseph Estrada. I cannot remember who's there is what we call suspension. So the capital punishment of death is suspended by law. So you cannot, as of the moment, you cannot be punished with death, no? So whatever grave offense you committed, you cannot be punished by death as of the moment. So we have afflictive penalties: reclusion perpetua, reclusion temporal, prison mayor. This is more than 6 years of imprisonment, prison mayor. And then correctional penalties, we have prison correctional, arresto mayor, destierro. Okay, then we have also light penalties, arresto minor, and public censure. Those are the things that you need to remember. Okay, that's it for module 7.